Hi everyone, welcome to another video on using Excel. This will be an introduction to Vlookup. Vlookup is a celebrity in the world of Excel functions. So unless you've been living under the proverbial rock in the world of Excel, you would have definitely used Vlookup in some capacity. Now admittedly, it has lost some of its fame to its versatile cousin, the Vlookup function. However, that doesn't mean that Vlookup is still not very useful. So let's get the ball rolling. First, let's try and understand the structure of the Vlookup function. So if you were to just type Vlookup on an Excel sheet, and let's see what are the parameters that this function takes. So Vlookup in its standard form takes in 4 parameters. The first parameter, lookup value, is the value that you're trying to find in some other table or source. The table underscore array, which is the second parameter, specifies the table where you're trying to find the lookup value. Column underscore index underscore num, this specifies the column from which you're trying to retrieve the data. The last one, which is range lookup. Now range lookup is a parameter which allows the user to specify if they want to use a range lookup or if they do not want to use a range lookup. When we say that you do not want to use the range lookup, it means you want to look up a precise value. So if range lookup is true, it will respond with a range. If range lookup is false, it will respond with a precise value. So let's see what that truly means. So out here we have some example data for our exercise, and the purpose of the exercise is to look up these set of numbers in column E under employee number, find these numbers within this table, and then return the corresponding name for the employee ID. So for example, for 130071, we want the function to return the value Nathaniel. For employee number 136467, we want the function to return the name Riley, and so on. So let's see how this works. So let's type it in and then select the value that we want to search, which is E4. And then let's select the range from which we will get the data. Now be careful in selecting the range because you want your range to encompass the starting column from which you will find the lookup value mentioned in E4, which in this case is the employee number, all the way at least till the place where you are likely to get the value you want to retrieve, which in this case is name. So that's why in our example we are selecting columns B and C. Then the next parameter that you have to specify for Vlookup is which column do you want to look up in. So in our case we want to look up in the second column. The first column is employee number in the selected range. The second column is name, so we select 2. And for our example, we will use range lookup. So let's say we want Excel to use range lookup in this case. So when you want to use range lookup, you want to use the value 1, which is true, or give me a range lookup function. Okay, so let's run this, and there we are. So for the first employee number, the value it has given is Nathaniel. It's quick for us to check here that this is the correct value. Okay, now let's go ahead and drag it. All right, just like any other Excel formula, and there we are. The next value that we have is 467, which is Riley, followed by the next value, which is 990, which is Gilbert, 245, which is Jorge, 151557, which is Amelia, and 156465 is Ethan. Let's make sure that is the case. All right, this looks good. However, one word of caution here. Remember that in this case, the reason this has worked fine for us, even though we have dragged the formula, is precisely because all of these numbers that you see in the source table are in sorted order. As you can see by the header of the table, it says sorted data. And you can see here that all the values are sorted. They are sorted in ascending order from lowest to highest. And that is why you are able to run the Vlookup function out here without any issues, and in spite of the fact that the range, now remember the range that we specified here is B4 to C18. Okay, so for the purposes of demonstration, remember B4 to C18 is this range. But the moment you drag the formula, you go on to the next cell, your range is dragged along with it. So now in the next cell, you see the range is from B5 to C19, which is not your original range anymore. And then let's see what happens in the next cell. Now your range is from B6 to C20, which is B6 to C20. I'm sure all of you can see the effect here. So basically, as and when we drag the formula, the range is being dragged along with the formula being dragged. And that is not the effect that we want. We want the range to be fixed, the range to be constant, and this will be an important aspect of running VLOOKUP properly. So my recommendation to all of you is that when you do run this lookup, even if the data is sorted, as a matter of principle, as a matter of exercise, so that you don't have the issue with moving ranges, always fix the range. So let's do this again by fixing the range. So we've selected the lookup value, we've selected the range, we want the data from the second column, and we want a range returned to us. Now, how do we fix this range, B4 to C18? So in Excel parlance, this is called freezing the cell. And the way you freeze the cell is you can do an F4 or a function F4, or you can manually add dollar symbols, which will be tedious. So just pressing down on the function key on your keyboard and using F4 freezes the cell. This is called freezing a cell. As you can see here, we have frozen both the column and the row for B4 and C18. What this means is when you do drag the formula, this time the range will not drag along with it. As you can see, the range in F4 is B4 C18. Unlike the previous example, the range is still B4 C18 when we move to cell number F5. And when we move to F6, the range is still the same, B4 to C18, and so on. All right, let's move on to the next example. So let's try the similar kind of data. Now we're specifically looking at the table, which is in columns I and column J. Similar data, employee number, employee name, and again, the purpose of the exercise is to get this information. So let's try this. So we do a VLOOKUP. This time the value we want to look up is in cell number L4, and our range is from I4 all the way till J18. We want the second column because the value that we want, which is name, is in the second column. First column is employee number, second column is name, and again we want it to return a range. As per the good practices, let's make sure we freeze the range here all the way from I4 to J18, purpose being we don't want the range dragged. Okay, so let's check for 130071. It says, well, that doesn't look right, does it? It says it is Charlotte. But then when we look at the table, we see that it should be Nathaniel, and that's what we had when we ran VLOOKUP for the first time. So something is definitely not right. But wait, let's try the other value, see what happens. All right, that looks even more unusual. As you can see, it's given Charlotte for the next 4 values. So what's going on here? So here's the thing. The trick is to do with the 4th parameter. The 4th parameter, which in this case is marked as 1. Now remember that 1 is for returning a range, and that's what this is doing. So remember guys, a very important aspect of VLOOKUP is whenever you're using the range lookup option, which is if your 4th parameter on Excel is 1, as in this case, this will only work when your source table is in sorted order, as we have in this table right here. In this case, as you see, this is not in sorted order. In fact, this is in no particular order, as you can see here. So this number in cell number I4 is greater than the cell next to it, but then I5 is again less than the next number, and greater, less, less, great, great, less, and so on. So this is virtually in random order. So when the data is in random order, for VLOOKUP, you don't want to return a range. What you want to return is a exact value. And that's where the fourth parameter will be changed to false by marking this as a 0. When you do that, and this time you see you have the right result for 130071, you get the response as Nathaniel, which is the right return value by the function. And then when you drag it, you will have all the right values. So let's quickly check one more randomly. Let's say for 151557 is Amelia, and it is indeed Amelia. And then 156785 should be Roberto, and we have Roberto. So that's one quick learning right there, guys. So remember that when you want to use VLOOKUP, if your data is sorted, you can use the fourth parameter as a return range option, which is by using the fourth parameter with the value 1, as in this formula. But if you want to use, if you have unsorted data or data in no particular order or random order, then in that case, the fourth parameter should be used as a value false or the value 0, and then you'll get the right options. So that's one very important thing to bear in mind. So one natural question that might come to mind is, if we have an option by marking the fourth parameter as a false or a 0 to return the exact value, why would we need option 1? So under what conditions or under what circumstances in the formula would we use the fourth parameter in VLOOKUP as a 1? Now remember that it has several applications, but the best possible application of using the value 1 is specifically when you're trying to look up a range of any sort. So how does that work? So let's take a very short example of how this can be utilized by us. So let's say that there's a class in which there are students, and the students are being given marks, and basis the marks that the students get in their class, they are being given badges by the school. So let's say you have some marks and you have some badges. I'll just quickly make up this data set so that we can take a look at this. So let's say that from 0 marks, and hopefully nobody is getting that, all the way till 50 marks. Let's say somebody's going to get a brown badge. Now, boy, would you want that? And then from 50 to 70 marks, let's say the badge that they're going to get is going to be a silver badge, for example. And then from 70 to let's say till 90 marks, the badge they're going to get is gold. And above that, the badge they are going to get is a diamond badge, for instance. Okay, let's make another one right here. So in this circumstance, we already defined the marks and the badges that somebody would get. So let's see, what does VLOOKUP do in such a case? So let's quickly put marks here and badge. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark this like this. And just for visibility and clarity, and let's put in a function here. So let's say we want to look up this value that we have in marks, which is cell number F24, in this range. And we wanted to return the second column, because remember, we are looking up marks, which is in the first column, badges is in second column, and we wanted to return a range. All right. Okay. So let's see. So given this table right here, what do we expect would be the batch for somebody who, say, let's get 25 marks. So for 25 marks, it's in the range of 0 to 50. As you can see, they get a brown badge. Let's say we take 49 marks. It still remains brown. Let's say somebody gets 50 marks. It immediately changes to a silver badge. And then let's say somebody was to get 69 marks. So we haven't pressed enter yet. For 69, it should still be silver because gold starts at 70. There we are. Let's change this to 70. And there, it changes to gold. What about somebody who's got, say, 90? It changes to diamond. What about 93? It remains as diamond. So there we are. This is a very important utility or function of using VLOOKUP with the option of true or the option of range lookup. As you can see here in the formula, we've used the fourth parameter of value 1, which is the value true for range lookup. So in these cases, what will happen is when VLOOKUP runs on this data set, it will return you the value for the range. And the way it looks up that range is, so for any mark, so for example, 93. 93 falls in the range of 90 to 100, falls in this range right there. So in this scenario, what it looks up is whenever you specify any number, it is going to find that interval. In this case, the interval is 90 to 100. Now, within that interval, it will find the lower bound, which is 90, and give you the value right next to it, which is diamond. Let's try this with another example. Let's say somebody was to get 75 marks. So for 75, let's apply the principle again. What is the range? So the range is 70 to 80. That's our range. This is the interval. Now within 70 to 80, in that interval, what is the lower bound? The lower bound is 70. Now what is the corresponding value for 70? The value is gold. And that's what we have here. So this is an important application. You can often use this application of VLOOKUP to change different ranges. You can apply it in cases where, let's say, in terms of a business application, if your business follows a calendar which does not match the actual calendar. Let's say they have a different financial calendar. For example, in some businesses, the last Wednesday of every month might be the last day of their fiscal calendar. In those kind of examples, when you want to give different dates within the same month, different meanings. So one date falls in quarter one, another falls in quarter two, as per the business fiscal cycle. Using VLOOKUP with a range lookup function can be a very useful property. All right, so that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. See you next time.